All right, let's talk about something a little unsettling. It's called the dead internet theory. And it's this idea that you've probably felt even if you couldn't quite put a name to it. The big question is anyone really still out there? So, let me ask you this. Do you ever feel like the internet has just gotten quiet? Or, I don't know, kind of weird? You know, you scroll for hours, but it feels like you're seeing the same 5 things just over and over again. Well, what if I told you that the human internet might have actually died around 2024, and what you're seeing now is just bots talking to other bots? And it's a wild thought, right? And it's the absolute core of the dead internet theory.
So, what is it exactly? Well, here's the theory in a nutshell. It basically claims that most of what you see online, the content, the social media accounts, all of it, is now being created and automated by artificial intelligence, not by people.
Now, if this all sounds a bit too out there, a bit too theoretical, let me give you a very real, very weird example. Have you seen Shrimp Jesus? Yeah, you heard me. These bizarre AI-generated pictures of, well, shrimp and Jesus have been flooding places like Facebook. They get tens of thousands of likes and comments. And on the surface, they seem harmless, kind of funny. But think about it. They're a perfect example of non-human content going viral, building up these huge accounts that could then be used for, well, pretty much anything. Okay, so is there any actual data to back up this creepy feeling? Let's dig into the evidence, starting with the sheer number of bots online.
So get this. We've officially hit a tipping point. For the first time ever, more than half of all internet traffic is automated. 51%. That means the majority of what's happening online isn't being done by a person anymore. And this chart right here just shows you that new reality in black and white. Humans, that's us, are on the left at 49%, bots are on the right at 51%. We are officially the minority online. Now sure, a lot of these are good bots, things that make search engines work, but a huge chunk of them are not. We're talking spam bots, scraper bots, and bots that are designed specifically to pretend to be human. And what's really crazy is how fast this all happened. Just look at the timeline. In 2022, bot traffic was at 47.4%. By 2023, it was almost 50-50. And now it's the majority. This wasn't some slow, gradual change. This has been a rapid takeover of our digital world.
And listen, this isn't happening on some dark, obscure corner of the web. This is on the apps you use every single day. On X, what used to be Twitter, some estimates say that nearly 2/3 of all accounts could be bots. On Instagram, you're looking at an estimated 95 million fake accounts. And on Facebook, about 14% of their monthly users are considered inauthentic. We're talking hundreds of millions of fake accounts across the board.
All right, that was the first piece of the puzzle. Now for part 2. It's not just about who is online, it's about what they're creating. Welcome to what you might call the infinite fake internet. And here is the absolute game changer, the reason this is all exploding. It's now practically free to create fake content. With generative AI, anyone or any bot can pump out an endless stream of believable images, articles, even videos. The floodgates are wide open because it costs basically nothing. This leads us to this kind of philosophical idea that has suddenly become very, very real. It's called hyperreality. The basic idea is that the simulation of reality becomes so good you can't tell it apart from the real thing, and eventually it might just replace it. When you can't tell if that photo or that comment was made by a person or an AI, well, you're living in hyperreality.
And this is really the scary part, the ultimate consequence of all this. The internet, our main way of communicating with each other, stops being about human expression. Instead, it turns into this automated system where algorithms, not people, are the ones deciding what's important, what gets seen, and maybe even what we believe. Okay, but why? Why is this happening? What's the motive here? To really get that, we have to rewind a bit and look at how the internet was built in the first place and what it's become today. You see, the early internet had a really simple goal: deliver information from point A to point B. That's it. But the modern internet, its goal is totally different: maximize engagement. The word we use today isn't designed for truth or authenticity. It's an economy built to grab your attention and hold it for as long as possible. And guess what? AI is the perfect tool for the job. What's so fascinating is that the seeds for this whole problem were planted right at the very beginning. The internet's core design was all about speed and simplicity, not security or trust. It was built to send data, not to check who sent it or if it was real. This design, with no built-in memory, no real identity, created the perfect playground for bots to just run wild. And every single major platform has taken advantage of these flaws, each in its own special way.
Google's algorithms basically act as the gatekeepers of information. Facebook's need for engagement ends up fueling political polarization. TikTok's incredible AI can subtly censor things without you ever knowing. And on X, bots are just destroying any sense of authenticity.
So, if the internet is dead, or at least on life support, what's next? Is there anything we can actually do to reclaim a space for real human connection online?
Well, unfortunately, the tools we're using right now are kind of like trying to fix a sinking ship with Scotch tape. Those AI content detectors, they're in a constant cat and mouse game with newer AIs. And you know those I'm not a robot CAPTCHA tests? Yeah, AI is now better at solving them than we are. And things like IP blocking or account verification, sophisticated botnets can get around them in their sleep.
And this really brings us to the core of it all. We can't just moderate our way out of this mess. This isn't a content problem anymore, it's a deep, fundamental engineering problem. The solution isn't about building better filters, it's about rebuilding the internet's architecture from the ground up, with trust baked in from the start. So what would that even look like? Well, here are a few big ideas. First, a system for proof of origin. Basically, a digital signature that proves a piece of content came from a real person on a real device. Second, we need an economic model where AI agents have to pay for the data they scrape, which would create some real accountability. And third, we need entirely new internet protocols where trust isn't an afterthought, it's a core function.
And look, this isn't just science fiction or some academic wish list. There are teams right now at companies like Cloudflare and Open Origins and others who are actively building this stuff. They're creating the foundations for a web that can actually tell the difference between a human and a machine.
Which leaves us all with one final, really important question. If the web we use every day is becoming a simulation, how will you find what's real? As the line between authentic and artificial keeps blurring, the job of finding the truth is going to fall more and more on our shoulders. In a world of infinite fakes, knowing how to spot what's real might just be the most important skill there is. Thanks for joining me.